The Galactic Council chamber hummed with tension, its vast dome illuminated by the soft glow of holographic star maps. Representatives from a dozen species sat in silence, their eyes fixed on the unmapped region of the galaxy, a void where human space lay. No one dared to speak its name. The air was thick with unease, a collective dread that had lingered for centuries. Finally, Elder ZYN, a wizened Krell with shimmering scales, broke the silence. We cannot ignore it any longer. The unmapped zone grows, and humanity's silence is deafening. We must decide, do we risk contact, or do we continue to pretend they do not exist? The Council had ruled the known galaxy for millennia, its members united by a shared goal, to map, explore, and govern the stars. Yet, humanity had always been an anomaly. When they first emerged from their solar system, they expanded faster than any species in recorded history. Their technology advanced at an unprecedented rate, their ships appearing in systems light years apart within decades. But just as quickly as they rose, they vanished. No communication, no trade, no diplomacy. Only a warning. Do not enter our space. The Council, bound by caution, obeyed. But whispers of a catastrophic event involving humanity spread like wildfire, though no one dared to confirm them. The unmapped zone was a blight on the Council's star charts, a region of space shrouded in mystery. Probes sent to investigate never returned. Signals from within were distorted, as if space itself warped around human territory. Some claimed it was a defense mechanism, others a prison. But the truth remained hidden, buried beneath layers of fear and speculation. A young Zalorian diplomat, Kira, raised her voice. Why do we fear them so much? They are just another species. What could they possibly have done to warrant this silence? The room fell quiet. No one answered. Later, in a hidden chamber deep within the Council headquarters, a select group of elders gathered. The topic, humanity. We cannot let the younger generations know. Elder ZYN said, his voice trembling. The truth would shatter them. Another elder, a stoic Vorn, nodded. But we cannot ignore the signs. The unmapped zone is expanding. If humanity's containment fails, the consequences will be catastrophic. After hours of debate, they reached a decision. A covert mission would be sent to investigate human space. The team would be small, discreet, and expendable. Their goal, uncover the truth and, if necessary, ensure it never reached the rest of the galaxy. The mission team was assembled in secret, each member chosen for their skills and loyalty. There was Tarek, a seasoned Krell navigator, Lyra, a Zalorian scientist with a knack for deciphering alien technology, and Voss, a Vorn soldier whose stoic demeanor masked a deep curiosity. Their ship, the Eclipse, was equipped with the latest stealth technology, designed to slip past any defenses. As they prepared for launch, Tarek couldn't shake the feeling of dread. We're walking into the unknown, he muttered. Humanity didn't just disappear. They were erased. The Eclipse crossed into the unmapped zone, its sensors immediately overwhelmed by distorted readings. Space itself seemed to twist and warp, the stars flickering like dying embers. The crew exchanged uneasy glances as the ship's AI struggled to make sense of the data. It's like we're not supposed to be here, Lyra said, her voice barely above a whisper. As they ventured deeper, they began to encounter remnants of human presence, abandoned outposts, derelict ships, and strange structures that defied explanation. Each discovery only deepened the mystery. Their first encounter with a human construct came without warning. A massive AI drone emerged in the darkness, its surface covered in glowing symbols. It scanned the Eclipse before transmitting a single message. Turn back. You do not belong here. The crew hesitated, torn between curiosity and fear. Voss, ever the pragmatist, argued for caution. We don't know what we're dealing with. This would be a trap. But Lyra was adamant. We came this far. We can't turn back now. Reluctantly, they pressed on. The deeper they went, the more unsettling the discoveries became. Strange energy signatures pulsed through the void, and the ship's instruments detected massive structures hidden in the darkness. One such structure, a colossal ring-like object, loomed ahead. Its surface was covered in intricate carvings, each one a warning in a language no one could decipher. As the eclipse approached, the structure began to activate, its core glow in otherworldly light. The crew braced themselves, unsure of what would happen next. The structure emitted a blinding pulse of energy, disabling the eclipse S systems. As the crew struggled to regain control, a holographic message played on the ship's main screen. It was a human, their face gaunt and weary. To those who have come this far, know this: we did not choose this path. We bear a burden no species should endure. Turn back or share our fate. The message ended abruptly, leaving the crew in stunned silence. Tarek was the first to speak. What burden? What are they talking about? Lyra's voice was trembling. I think we're about to find out. The fleet moved cautiously through the shattered star system, sensors scanning for any sign of the Vorix. The Cliverian ship, barely holding together, was brought aboard the Eclipse for repairs. Their story was one of desperation. A peaceful civilization caught in the crosshairs of an empire that thrived on conquest. The Vorix had swept through their system like a storm, leaving nothing but ruin in their wake. The Cliverians had fought valiantly, but their technology was no match for the invaders. Their only hope had been the faint chance that someone, somewhere, would hear their plea. Lieutenant Reyes spent hours with the Cliverians, learning what she could about their culture and the threat they faced. The aliens were hesitant at first, their trust hard-won, but Reyes's empathy and determination broke through their barriers. She learned of the Vorix's tactics, their overwhelming numbers, their ruthless efficiency, their willingness to destroy entire worlds rather than let them resist. It was a grim picture, but Reyes refused to be discouraged. Humanity had faced impossible odds before. They would do so again. Captain Voss called a meeting of the fleet's commanders to discuss their next move. The Cliverians had provided coordinates for their homeworld, Clivar, which was still under siege. The Vorix had blockaded the planet, cutting off all escape routes and bombarding the surface from orbit. The Cliverians' last stand was a desperate attempt to buy time for their people, but time was running out. We can't take on the Vorix head-on, Commander Torres said, her tone grim. Their fleet is too large, their firepower too great. Even with our advanced tech, we'd be outmatched. Then we don't fight them head-on, Reyes countered. We use our strengths, speed, agility, and ingenuity. The Vorix rely on brute force. If we can outthink them, we might stand a chance. Voss nodded, his expression thoughtful. Reyes is right. We need a plan that plays to our advantages. The Cliverians know their system better than anyone. If we can use that knowledge, we might be able to turn the tide. The plan that emerged was risky, but it was the best they had. The fleet would split into smaller task forces, each targeting a different part of the Vorix blockade. The goal wasn't to destroy the enemy outright. It was to create chaos, to disrupt their formations, and buy time for Cliverians to mount a counterattack. Reyes was assigned to lead one of the task forces, a responsibility that both thrilled and terrified her. She had never commanded in battle before, but she knew this was her chance to prove herself. As the fleet approached Clivar, the scale of the devastation became clear. The planet was surrounded by Vorix warships, their dark hulls bristling with weapons. The surface was scarred by craters and fires, the once vibrant cities reduced to ash. Reyes clenched her fists, her resolve hardening. They couldn't let this stand. The battle began with a coordinated strike on the Vorix's outer perimeter. The human ships, small and fast, darted in and out of range, their weapons targeting the enemy's weaker points. The Vorix responded with overwhelming force, their cannons lighting up the void with deadly precision. But the humans had anticipated this. They used the debris fields and asteroid belts to their advantage, weaving through the chaos and striking from unexpected angles. Reyes's task force targeted a Vorix supply depot, a critical hub for the blockade. The depot was heavily guarded, but Reyes had a plan. She ordered her ships to feign a retreat, drawing the Vorix away from their defenses. Once the enemy was out of position, she led a swift, precise strike on the depot, crippling its operations and cutting off the Vorix's supply lines. The maneuver was risky, but it worked. The Vorix were thrown into disarray, their formations breaking apart as they scrambled to respond. The Cliverians, emboldened by the humans' actions, launched their own counterattack. Their ships, though outmatched, fought with ferocity born of desperation. together. The two fleets began to push the Vorks back, inch by hard-fought inch. The battle was far from over, but for the first time, there was hope. As the fighting raged on, Reyes found herself face-to-face with a Vorks warship. The enemy vessel was massive, its hull bristling with weapons, but Reyes refused to back down. She ordered her crew to target the ship's engines, aiming to disable it without destroying it. The Vorks had shown no mercy to the Cliverians, but Reyes believed in a different way, a way that didn't involve becoming the very thing they were fighting against. The maneuver was a success. The Vorks warship was crippled, its engine sputtering as it drifted helplessly. Reyes allowed herself a moment of satisfaction before turning her attention back to the battle. There was still much to do, but they had taken the first step. Humanity had answered the call, and in doing so, they had shown the galaxy what they were capable of. The Vorks, caught off guard by the humans' tactics, began to retreat. Their once impenetrable blockade was crumbling, their ships falling back in disarray. The Cliverians cheered, their voices filled with gratitude and relief. But Reyes knew this was only the beginning. The Vorks would return, stronger and more determined than ever, and when they did, humanity would be ready. The Vorks' retreat was not a surrender. It was a regrouping, a temporary withdrawal to reassess and retaliate. The humans and Cliverians knew this. The brief respite was spent fortifying defenses, repairing ships, and preparing for the inevitable counterattack. The Cliverians, though battered and weary, worked alongside their human allies with a renewed sense of purpose. For the first time in years, they had hope, and they were determined to fight for it. Lieutenant Reyes found herself at the center of the effort. Her quick thinking and adaptability had earned her the respect of both her crew and the Cliverians. She spent hours in the war room, poring over tactical maps and strategizing with Captain Voss and the Cliverian commanders. The Vorks were predictable in their brutality, but their sheer numbers and firepower made them a formidable foe. The key, Reyes argued, was to exploit their predictability while introducing elements of chaos they couldn't anticipate. The Vorks returned sooner than expected. Their fleet was larger this time, a dark swarm of warships descending on Clivar with relentless precision. The humans and Cliverians were ready, but the odds were still heavily against them. The battle began with a barrage of Vorks artillery, their energy cannons lighting up the void as they targeted the planet's remaining defenses. The human and Cliverian ships moved quickly, their smaller, more agile frames darting through the chaos to strike at the enemy's flanks. Reyes led her task force in a daring maneuver, targeting the Vorks' command ship. If they could take out the enemy's leadership, they might be able to disrupt their coordination. The Vorks' command ship was heavily guarded, its defenses nearly impenetrable, but Reyes had a plan. She ordered her ships to launch a series of decoy drones, drawing the Vorks' attention away from their true target. As the enemy focused on the drones, Reyes' task force slipped through their defenses, launching a precision strike on the command ship's weak points. The attack was a success. The Vorks' command ship was crippled, its systems failing as it drifted helplessly. The enemy fleet, now leaderless, began to falter. Their formations broke apart, their attacks growing disorganized and erratic. The humans and Cliverians seized the opportunity, pressing their advantage with relentless determination. The tide of the battle began to turn, but the Vorks were not so easily defeated. Even without their command ship, they fought with a ferocity born of desperation. Their ships, though disorganized, were still a formidable force. The humans and Cliverians suffered heavy losses, their ships falling one by one to the enemy's relentless assault. Reyes watched in horror as the Valiant, one of the fleet's most advanced vessels, was torn apart by Vorks artillery. The loss was devastating, but it only strengthened her resolve. As the battle raged on, Reyes noticed something unusual. The Vorks ships, though still numerous, were beginning to pull back. At first, she thought it was another tactical retreat, but then she saw it, a massive energy signature emerging from the edge of the system. It was a Vorks superweapon, a planet killer capable of reducing Clivar to ash in a single strike. The Vorks, realizing they couldn't win through conventional means, had decided to destroy the planet entirely. Reyes' heart raced as she realized what was at stake. If the superweapon fired, it wouldn't just mean the end of Clivar. It would mean the end of everything they had fought for. She immediately contacted Captain Voss, her voice urgent. "Sir, we need to take out that superweapon. If it fires, it's over." Voss agreed, but the task seemed impossible. The superweapon was heavily guarded, its defenses even more formidable than the command ships. Reyes knew they didn't have the firepower to take it down through brute force. They would need to be smarter, more cunning. She proposed a plan, a risky, all-or-nothing gambit that would require perfect timing and flawless execution. The plan involved using the eclipse as a diversion. The flagship would draw the Vorix's attention, allowing a small strike team to infiltrate the superweapon and disable it from within. Reyes volunteered to lead the strike team, knowing full well the risks involved. Voss hesitated, but ultimately agreed. "Just make it back alive, Lieutenant," he said, his voice heavy with concern. The eclipse moved into position, its weapons firing on the Vorix fleet with relentless precision. The enemy, predictably, focused their attention on the flagship, their ships converging on it in a desperate attempt to take it down. Meanwhile, Reyes and her team slipped through the chaos in a small, stealth-equipped shuttle, their hearts pounding as they approached the superweapon. The infiltration was tense. The superweapon's defenses were formidable, but Reyes's team moved with precision and determination. They fought their way through the enemy's forces, their every move calculated and deliberate. Finally, they reached the superweapon's core, a massive, pulsating energy reactor that powered the deadly weapon. Reyes didn't hesitate. She planted the charges, her hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. The team retreated just as the charges detonated, the superweapon's core erupting in a blinding explosion. The shockwave rippled through the Vorix fleet, their ships thrown into disarray as the superweapon was reduced to debris. The humans and Cliverians cheered, their voices filled with relief and triumph. The Vorix, now leaderless and without their ultimate weapon, began to retreat in earnest. Reyes and her team returned to the eclipse, their mission a success. But the victory was bittersweet. The cost had been high, and the battle had taken its toll on both the humans and the Cliverians. As the fleet regrouped, Reyes looked out at the stars, her mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. The Vorix would return, of that she had no doubt. But for now, they had won. And in doing so, they had shown the galaxy what humanity was capable of. The aftermath of the battle was a somber affair. The humans and Cliverians had won, but the cost had been staggering. Ships lay in ruins, their crews lost to the void. The surface of Clivar, though spared from total destruction, bore the scars of war. Cities reduced to rubble, landscapes scorched by Vorix bombardment. Yet, amidst the devastation, there was hope. The Vorix had been driven back, their superweapon destroyed, and their fleet in disarray. For the first time in years, the Cliverians dared to believe in a future free from fear. Lieutenant Reyes stood on the observation deck of the Eclipse, her eyes fixed on the planet below. The Cliverians had invited the human fleet to land, to see the world they had fought so hard to protect. Reyes felt a mix of emotions, pride in what they had accomplished, grief for those they had lost, and a quiet determination to ensure their sacrifices were not in vain. She was joined by Captain Voss, who placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did good, Reyes," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. "We all did." The Cliverians welcomed their human allies with open arms. The planet's surviving leaders organized a ceremony to honor the fallen and celebrate the victory. Reyes found herself standing before a crowd of Cliverians, their glowing eyes filled with gratitude. She spoke not as a soldier, but as a representative of humanity. "We came because you asked for help," she said, her voice steady. "But we stay because we believe in what you're fighting for. Freedom, hope, a future where no one has to live in fear. We're honored to stand with you, and we'll continue to stand with you, no matter what comes next." Her words resonated deeply with the Cliverians. For years, they had been isolated, their pleas for help ignored by the rest of the galaxy. Humanity's willingness to answer their call, to risk everything for a people they had never met, was a revelation. It sparked something in the Cliverians, a renewed sense of purpose, a belief that they were not alone in the fight against the Vorix. In the days that followed, the humans and Cliverians worked together to rebuild. Engineers from both species collaborated to repair damaged infrastructure, while medical teams tended to the wounded. The Cliverians shared their knowledge of the galaxy, providing the humans with valuable intelligence on the Vorax and their operations. In return, the humans offered their advanced technology, helping the Cliverians bolster their defenses and prepare for the next attack. Reyes found herself at the center of these efforts. Her ability to bridge the gap between the two species made her an invaluable asset. She spent hours in meetings with Cliverian leaders, helping to coordinate their joint efforts. She also took the time to learn about Cliverian culture, their history, and their struggles. The more she learned, the more determined she became to help them secure a better future. The Vorax, though temporarily defeated, were not gone. Scouts reported sightings of their ships on the edge of the system, gathering their forces for another assault. The humans and Cliverians knew they couldn't afford to rest. They needed a plan, a way to not just defend Clivar, but to strike back at the Vorax and end the threat once and for all. Reyes proposed an ambitious strategy. Instead of waiting for the Vorax to attack, they would take the fight to them. The Cliverians knew the location of several Vorax strongholds, including a key supply depot that fueled their war machine. If they could destroy the depot, they could cripple the Vorax's ability to wage war. It was a risky plan, but it was their best chance at securing a lasting victory. The fleet prepared for the mission with a sense of urgency. The Eclipse and its sister ships were repaired and refitted, their crews bolstered by Cliverian volunteers. Reyes was given command of the strike team, tasked with infiltrating the Vorax depot and planting explosives at its core. She accepted the responsibility without hesitation, knowing that the success of the mission depended on her. The journey to the Vorax depot was tense. The fleet moved through hyperspace, their sensors on high alert for any sign of the enemy. When they arrived, they found the depot heavily guarded, its defenses even more formidable than expected. The humans and Cliverians launched a coordinated assault, their ships engaging the Vorax in a fierce battle. Reyes and her team slipped through the chaos, their shuttle cloaked to avoid detection. The infiltration was a harrowing experience. The depot was a labyrinth of corridors and chambers, each one heavily patrolled by Vorax soldiers. Reyes and her team moved with precision, their every step calculated to avoid detection. They fought their way through the enemy's forces, their determination unwavering. Finally, they reached the depot's core, a massive reactor that powered the entire facility. Reyes planted the charges, her hand steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. The team retreated just as the explosives detonated, the reactor erupting in a blinding explosion. The shock wave rippled through the depot, its defenses collapsing as the structure was consumed by fire. The Vorax fleet, now without their supply lines, began to retreat in disarray. The humans and Cliverians returned to Clivar as heroes. The victory was a turning point, not just in the war against the Vorax, but in the relationship between the two species. The Cliverians, inspired by humanity's courage and compassion, pledged to stand with them as equals. Together, they would build a future free from fear, a future where the galaxy could thrive in peace. As the fleet prepared to return to Earth, Rhea stood on the observation deck once more, her eyes fixed on the stars. She thought of all they had accomplished, all they had lost, and all they had gained. The journey had been long and difficult, but it had been worth it. Humanity had answered the call, and in doing so, they had shown the galaxy what they were capable of. They had proven that even in the face of overwhelming odds, hope could prevail. And as the Eclipse entered hyperspace, Reyes knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, and there were countless others who needed help. Humanity would answer their calls too, not because they had to, but because it was who they were. And in doing so, they would continue to inspire hope, not just for themselves, but for all who look to the stars.